Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's program with Coach Menachem Bernfeld on July 6th, 2025. Tonight's share 236. I want to first start off saying that this platform is growing and we're in our sixth year already. Baruch Hashem. We've had Rabbi Slatkin before. So honored to have him back, this time with a surprise guest. And hopefully tonight will be a very beautiful program and we'll have an open conversation. We'll be a sichas chaver and place to talk through a lot of important inyanim. If anybody who wants to join our WhatsApp chats, please WhatsApp us at 732-314-1710. That's 732-314-1710. I will send you the community link. And also you can go to menachembernfeld.com and sign up at the website for all the emails and the replays and all the people that are coming on to Coach Menachem. All the people that are watching the replay of this, please click on the like button and the subscribe button. So every week when Menachem posts the videos, you get notified. And thank you to all the advertising sponsors, Lakewood Scoop here in Lakewood, Ellie and Ariel for 5 Town Central, and Chayla Calvin from JCN, the Jewish Content Network, always promoting us on all digital Jewish platforms. Again, if anybody's here the first time, every Sunday night at 9 p.m. on this Zoom ID, we have different topics, different rabbanim, different therapists. And next week is going to be Shavuos B'Tammuz, July 13th. And we will not have a program, Shavuos B'Tammuz. And then following that, we're going to have July 20th, Menachem, Rabbi Daniel Usher Kleiman, and the topic will be confirmed. And the following week, July 27th, that's the Sunday before Tisha B'Av, we're going to have the honor of having Rabbi Charlie Harari again, who comes on, seems like every Erev Tisha B'Av to really have it out to get us in the Tisha B'Av mode. So we have a pretty full agenda. Hope to see everybody. And please join us every week. Again, tonight's share is 236. And now we're going to turn to Coach Menachem Bernfeld to Arne Fried. To the gematria, why this year waited for 236. You ready? Rabbi Slatkin, Mrs. Slatkin, you ready? This is the reason why you had to wait till this week.
Shalom Levracha to Zoom share number 236, how we learn to talk so the other would listen, finding connection in the middle of conflict. If one realizes that the world is completely controlled by Hashem, by each way, nobody can do bad to him, and everything is directly from Hashem, there will be no conflict. Which leads us up tonight for tonight's gematria of 236. Hashem yiyeh imachem. Hashem will be with us. Once we realize that, there will be no conflict, and we can speak at peace with each other at ease.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to Coach Menachem Bernfeld. Coach Menachem, Sunday night, in the middle of the summer. What are we doing here? What's tonight's topic? What are we talking about?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Coach Menachem. Let's get real with Coach Menachem number 236, Baruch Hashem, with a lot of Siyata Deshmaya. And we're back with a discussion about Shalom Bayis. We've had many Shalom Bayis discussions. We've had Rabbi Shlomo with us in the past. We discussed Imago, and there's always room for more. So here we are. We always daven to have Geffen, Gesund, Parnasa, Nachas, but without Shalom, without peace in the house, it's very hard to have, whether it's a chinuch, wherever other areas in life are affected by the energy, by the feeling of what's going on in the house. So I'm just coming up with a few questions that before we start the program, just to think, what's your definition of Shalom Bayis? What's your definition of peace? I would ask people, what's the image that they have in mind, that they think that's perfect? That's what a marriage should look like, it's supposed to look like. Maybe like your parents, maybe not like your parents, your neighbors. Some people have that imaginary perfect picture, and that always haunts them because they're never there and they're trying to figure out when and if only. Maybe pointing fingers, but let's stop for a moment. Not always easy to listen to these concepts and to see what's really going on by me in my home, my relationship with myself, with my spouse. So it's a moment. Let's take a moment to evaluate, what does it look like? How much of it is it me, and how much of it is it my spouse? When do I point fingers and say if only they would? If only they would. You finish the sentence. If only they would listen. If only they would understand me. If only they could be normal. If they can just clean after themselves. What's that if only that you have that's just in the way of getting you to a place where you can feel peace? And again, everybody has a different list. So really, to be honest with yourself. What's going on? Am I pointing fingers? And let's point fingers to ourselves, see which part of it do I have to do with this? What's something small that I can do that will make a difference? And if you can't come up with anything because you're perfect, I guess we'll talk tonight to see what's going on. But it's a conversation, not always easy, but I think with Siyata Dishmaya, we have Reb and Rebbetzin Slatkin who do this. This is what you do, meet other couples, and I'm sure practice the Imago therapy. And many people have mentioned that they see results, and we would love to hear more about it. And another good question would be, where can't it work? Does it always work? Or maybe there are situations where in my marriage, it probably won't make a difference. So, Emet Hashem, we shall Hashem should help everyone to be able to hear what they need in a way that they can accept and implement and see a change. Emet Hashem.
Beautiful opening. Okay, let's read Shlomo Slatkin's bio from last time. I have it. And if anything changed, you let me know. If you get any more certifications or something, you let me know. Shlomo Slatkin, MS, LCPC, a certified Imago relationship therapist, advanced clinician, and certified Imago workshop presenter, together with his wife Rivka. See, even last time you were on it. They founded the Marriage Restoration Project, a global initiative to help keep couples together and happy. Out of concern for the global breakdown of relationships and families, Rabbi Slatkin made it his mission to help save marriages in 2 days by way of intensive marriage retreats. He also created an online marriage school for self-guided programs, an affordable solution to quality marriage help. For more information, you can go to his website, right? The Marriage Restoration Project. What's the website?
MarriageRestorationProject.com.
We'll post on the chat. So it's an honor to have you back. This time you brought your wife. And Rabbi Slatkin, open it up.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here again.
One second, I just want to read tonight's topic. The way we named it is how we learn to talk so the other would listen. Finding connection in middle of conflict. Sorry, open it up.
Great. Thank you so much. It's great being here. So we'll start off just a few points, and then I'm very curious to hear everyone's questions. What Coach Menachem was saying before about how much of this is really about the other person, how much of it is really about myself, how much of my challenges and my relationships are about me, about my partner, my wife, my husband, and how much are about me. I think it's a hard thing for people to deal with. I think that when people get married, they have an image of what relationships are supposed to be. It's usually a positive thing. Nobody thinks that they're going to have struggles. Nobody wants to hear that in the honeymoon stage. I remember when it was Shavuot Brachos, and people were telling us, marriage is hard and you're going to fight. And we're just like, no, we know how to communicate. We're really good at communicating. And we were very good at communicating when we would talk about how much we liked each other and positive things, or even when we talked about our own personal challenges, like with other issues that weren't related to us. But once we started having our own fights between us, we weren't such good communicators. And that got us to the point where we were a little bit disillusioned. We kind of thought, like, what is this? What do we get ourselves into? Is this really the relationship that we thought we were supposed to be in? Is this really what marriage is supposed to be like? And I think that's a challenge that everyone faces to some degree or another, and it can be very difficult. And people can have just, I would say, you're like normal everyday run-of-the-mill conflict, which can be painful, and people can have some, very volatile relationships, very volatile conflict. And it's very hard to be able to understand how I'm in the situation that I'm in and how things could get any better. And the temptation is to focus, when we're in pain, is to focus on the other, to blame the other person. You're causing my pain, right? And what we learn with couples is that we need to think deeper, we need to look deeper to understand that what is the message that I'm getting here in this conflict? What is the message What is the opportunity that, that we said in the introduction of the Dvar Torah, that Hashem is sending to me in this moment to be able to realize that I'm in the right place where I need to be. And I'm not going to give away all of the secrets of Imago. We talked about some of it before, but and we'll probably continue talking about it. But it's all about getting conscious, about understanding why I'm being bothered, why I'm being triggered, and instead of focusing on the other person, taking responsibility and ownership. And when I can take ownership, it's almost I'm really realizing that this is hashgacha pratis. Hashem is sending me this opportunity. The reason I'm having conflict with my spouse, it's an opportunity for me to understand what I need to do to work on myself, to improve myself, to deal with my own baggage, to become a better person. And when I can put that focus on myself, then a lot of times the conflict goes away, because that message that's being sent doesn't need to keep rearing its ugly head, because I got the message. And that's something that we started to begin experiencing. It's a very hard thing to do, but as you wake up and you learn about it and you understand it and you take ownership, you not only see it as a liability, but you actually see it as really an opportunity, a bracha really that's coming for each individual to be able to work on what they need to do to actualize themselves and to heal themselves from their own baggage that they bring to the relationship. One of the things that makes it hard, we're talking about listening tonight, right? How do you listen? How to learn to talk so the other will listen, listen to the other will talk, to paraphrase the book. The hardest thing about listening to another person is to be able to kind of cross the bridge into the world of the other, to remove the ego. Because the ego is so fragile. When the person feels threatened, when a person feels like, you're doing this to me, you're hurting me, you're criticizing me, you're not nice to me, automatically we feel defensive and we go into ourselves, we go into our own pain, and then we need to justify, we need to come up with answers, and we can't really hear what the other person's saying. And one of the challenges is, when we're listening from the left brain, the logic brain. So a lot of times the other person doesn't really make sense. I don't even agree with you about the facts. Forget about your feelings. I can't even agree with you about the facts. So I'm caught up in trying to prove whether I'm right or wrong because I'm feeling threatened, that it makes it hard for me to really cross the bridge. That's the left brain. We know the left brain is called Bina. Bina is also a place of din. And it's the place of judgment. So I hear what the other person's saying. I'm trying to discern whether it's right or wrong. I'm dealing with the facts. I'm not able to really hear you. And I'm not able to hear you, I don't really want to hear you. I'm judging you. I think there's something wrong with you. I think you're the problem. What we're trying to do is to really leave that behind and get to what we call curiosity, to be able to make space for someone else. The relationship is not about you and your spouse is an extension of you. It's about making space for another person. And what that means is being able to listen to somebody, as painful as it can be. And I remember when we did this work together in the beginning, and we would start hearing things that we would share, like let's say a frustration in the Imago dialogue process, and one of us just had to be quiet and we couldn't respond and we had to listen. And all of a sudden, like our first instinct is like, well, that's not true, and like I didn't do that, and that's like, where are you getting that from? Once we really learned how to leave ourselves behind for that moment, cross the bridge into the world of the other, and kind of get into our right brain, into what we call the brain. The right brain is chachma. Chachma is koyachma. It's, what is this? It's a place of curiosity. I'm wondering why. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense why you feel that way about me, or that I did this. But I want to get curious about where you're coming from. I want to really not judge you, but I want to hear why you feel that way. And when we listen long enough, we said everyone makes sense. When we really can get curious enough to understand where the other person's coming from, then the self evaporates for that moment, and we can really be in this presence of another person. And that's where we can have a new ability to connect. So again, it's taking ourselves behind, putting ourselves aside and making space for someone else in a relationship is really the key. And when it's coming from, again, instead of judgment, it's coming from a place of curiosity, that really makes space for another person in the relationship. And when you make space for another person, you make space for the Shekhinah, right? That's Shekhinah Shorei B'neihem. You have to have a space between. If I'm taking up all the space, there's no space. There's no space for my wife. There's no space for the Shekhinah either. Making a space for another person is allowing that divine presence to rest in the relationship and to be able to create peace, because you're making space for another. And it's really hard. And we think, just one other anecdote about this, we can see this in general in society. People are very opinionated. Like, look in the world of politics. People have their viewpoints about things, and people are not able to hear where the other person's coming from. So it's kind of like, it's all about, I'm feeling very threatened by you. If I'm feeling threatened by you, I can't really listen to you. I can't hear where you're coming from. I'm not really interested to hear your perspective. But if I can get curious and instead of being afraid that you could have a different way of looking at things, to really hear where you're coming from, I can make sense. I don't have to agree with you. And this is a big point here. I'm not saying that, Shalom is not about agreeing. You don't have to agree with your spouse, but we're asking you to make space for another reality, that you can validate that another person's feelings and thoughts and experiences are equally as valid as yours. And if you could really understand and come from compassion, and you hear the big picture, it makes total sense why they feel the way they do, even if you have another perspective. It's so interesting working with couples where we can see that two people both make sense about the same issue, even though they're diametrically opposed. They feel very different about it. But knowing one person's perspective and their story and their childhood story, and the other person's perspective and their story, both people can make sense. It's kind of Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim. It's like you're allowing to create space for both people, and that can only be done with when there's curiosity, when you're able to see the gray, when it's not this way or that way, black or white. And I think that's very hard for us to do, because we see the world from a place of separateness, and that's the illusion of this physical world. It's just like we can't see Hashem either. We can't feel Hashem's presence because Hashem created a world where He conceals Himself, where we can't experience that. The truth is that everything is one, but from our perspective, it's not that way. So we see separateness, and what we're trying to do is to be able to go beyond that, to go beyond the illusion of separateness in everything, in life and in relationships, and make space for that, the fact that there can be a oneness and connection. And when we can do that and really be present with the other person and hold that reality, it really changes everything.
Okay, beautiful, Rabbi Slatkin, beautiful opening. What we're going to do is we're going to take a poll now from everybody, and then we're going to get into questions, okay? Start with a 3-question poll. Here we go. Everybody answer to the best of your ability. First question, when you're hurt by someone close to you, what is your first instinct? 4 options. A, completely withdraw completely. B, lash out in anger. C, try to fix it quickly. Or D, seek support from others. Second question. In your marriage, how comfortable do you feel discussing topics that bring up guilt or shame? A, very comfortable. B, somewhat comfortable. D, not comfortable at all. Or fourth option, I avoid these conversations altogether. Third question. Do you believe a marriage can heal from deep betrayal such as infidelity? 4 options. Yes, with hard work and guidance. B, maybe, but it's very difficult. C, no, betrayal ends trust forever. Or D, I'm not sure. Okay, while everybody answers the polls, tonight is an open conversation. We could discuss. Rabbi Slatkin, as I always say when we talk about Shalom Bayis, obviously it's not for you. It's obviously for your neighbor. So when you ask the question, you don't have to preface it. We all understand that. And you have the opportunity here to have Rabbi Shlomo and his wife that deal with this day and night, and they have programs and they help a lot of people. So ask the questions, get clarity, chaperon while you're here. Okay, another 5 seconds on the polls, and then we're going to share the answers with everybody, and then we'll jump into live questions. We'll start off first with a live question. Anybody else who wants to ask a live question, please text Usher Partners here. And remember that live questions go first. Okay, here we go. First question. When you're hurt by someone close to you, what's your first instinct? 51% of the people, the number one answer is withdraw completely. 17% lash out anger, 11% try to fix it quickly, 22% seek support from others. So by far, it seems like most people, when they get hurt by somebody, they right away run into protect mode and withdraw mode. Rabbi,
Okay.
Mrs., any comment on that?
I was just curious if there's a way to know how many men versus women are on this call. Not that like we're stereotyping, but I'm just curious if there's a way to know that.
I'm gonna tell you an estimate of about 65% woman,
Really? Let me just,
I guess.
are you looking at the names?
No, I'm saying from my years of experience.
Okay. Interesting.
The name doesn't mean anything. People sign on, they could be husband or wife, it could be any name.
Right, that's true.
Okay, let's go to the second question. In your marriage, how comfortable do you feel discussing topics that bring up guilt or shame? You have a pretty much a three-way tie over here. Only 8% are very comfortable. 31% are somewhat comfortable, 28% are not comfortable at all, and 33% I avoid these conversations altogether. So basically more on the lower end. People are uncomfortable discussing things of guilt and shame in a marriage with their spouse. The third poll. Do you believe marriage can heal from deep betrayal such as infidelity? 18% of people said yes with hard work. 40% maybe, but very difficult. 20% no, betrayal ends trust forever. 21% I'm not sure. Okay, any comment on any of these polls?
How deep do you want us to go into it?
I mean, I could comment on all
It's
of them,
your
but
discretion. Whatever you guys want.
Each
I mean, we could
We
comment.
can start off with a live question if you want. Whatever you want.
We can comment on each. Well,
briefly.
first, yeah, briefly. Everybody wants to.
Yeah, so the first one, I know in Imago, we talk a lot about turtles and hailstorms, or maximizers and minimizers. So here's the story that we like to tell. Once upon a time, there was a turtle crossing the road, minding his own business. And this hailstorm, this big rain cloud, saw him and she wanted his attention. So she started pounding some hail on his shell. And he was like very taken aback. So he just kind of kept crossing the road, not saying anything, not paying attention. And she really wanted to get his attention. So she just kept pounding her hail even louder and louder. And he got more and more scared and more fearful and just, ran across the road as fast as he could and went into his shell completely. And at the end, she just kept raining hail on him. And then he just became a snapping turtle because he was so, out of sorts. But we find in a marriage, typically there's one turtle and there's one hailstorm, one maximizer, one minimizer. Sometimes there's two turtles, we find a lot, but the hailstorm is somebody who really needs to talk to others, get out their feelings. They're very much a people person. They lash out typically in anger, want to talk about things, want to fix it quickly. And the turtle needs more time. They are really uncomfortable with showing up and it's really unsafe for them. And what's interesting is, the more the turtle is unsafe by going into his shell, the more unsafe the hailstorm feels. So she gets louder and louder. And it's not always man or woman. So it can be a man that's a hailstorm and a woman that's a turtle. So I'd be curious if the people that filled out this poll did it with their spouse or their spouse would have the opposite answer. Because a lot of times when people hear that story, they're like, oh my gosh, you mean my spouse isn't just this like borderline narcissist? Like they're just like,
All the labels that people give.
yeah, they're like, this is normal. And we're like, yeah, we see this all the time, maximizers and minimizers.
But the people have that again, I know there's extremes and there are people that have, real diagnoses, but a lot of the time what we find is that people have people's bad behavior is really because they're not feeling safe. And then so they're either going to, as Rivka said, they're either going to minimize their energy and freeze or submit like the turtle, or they're going to maximize, they're going to outward that big loud energy. So and we provoke the opposite of what we want. So basically what we want. So basically it's going to be a never-ending cycle until we stop it. So that's what we teach couples, how to be able to communicate
And stop the reactivity.
to stop the reactivity so that you don't need to protect yourself anymore because you're no longer in danger. And that's a hard thing, but
So that's number one.
That's number one. And then if you regarding
I just want to mention one other thing, like the labels that you gave is that at the end of the day, they do have those tendencies a lot, and women also have the emotional tendencies. So when they're feeling unsafe, those tendencies come out so much more. So they act more emotionally not stable, more borderline-ish to women because they are emotional beings. And when they feel not safe, they're going to act emotionally more dysregulated than a man. A man is going to be more controlling. That's a man's teva.
In
That's why,
general, Bush, you're talking in general?
general, yeah,
It's not always that way.
it's not
Yeah.
always that way. No.
yeah, sometimes it's the opposite. But I mean, I would say it's usually more men are the minimizers and women are the maximizers, but we've definitely seen
Women that
Women
are
are-
complete turtles,
yeah.
men that are huge hailstorms.
Right.
And until this reactive cycle breaks, it just keeps
It's
continuing.
also based on your child. It's based on your adaptation. This is how you protected yourself growing up. So part of it maybe you have more natia because of gender, maybe, but and socialization. But it's also because of your childhood experience. So like if you're the middle child and like you were neglected, like maybe you needed to get you try to get attention, so you made a lot of noise. Whereas maybe if you lived in a home that was really volatile, maybe you needed to just like go to your room and disappear. So a lot of this is what got us safe growing up. Problem is, what gets us safe growing up doesn't usually does the opposite in a marriage, and we usually are attracted to somebody who is the opposite, which
If
is
you have two people that are both like grow up in a place where they ran to their room, so that anytime there would be a conflict, they would just both shut down.
Yeah, a lot of times.
sometimes that, and sometimes one person assumes the role of the opposite just to balance it out. So even if like both people are kind of retreat, one person is like super a super turtle.
Okay. Do you want to go to the next question, comments, or you want to go to the live question?
Yeah, so the second one I think is similar, but maybe you have a different
It's similar
perspective.
because whether it's guilt or shame or any difficult topics, it's if you can feel safe with your spouse, then you can talk about anything because you know they're going to listen to you, that they're not going to judge you, they're not going to shame you, that you can really be able to feel open up. And I think that's the same kind of dynamic. I mean, usually the same person who withdraws and shuts down is also the same one who doesn't want to talk because they don't feel safe to open up, because if they open up, their spouse is going to bite their head off. So it's easier just not to say anything. So whether it's opening up or whether it's responding, they're not going to say anything. So again, it's all about learning how to feel safe to be able to bring it up. And once you do that, I mean, I remember like as the turtle, um, I mean, I still tend to feel like more reluctant to bring up things. Like I have to make sure it's a good time, but it's a lot. I felt much more comfortable than maybe like let's say in the beginning of our marriage before we learned these skills, like to be able to share anything. Um, that's difficult. So, but
Really?
uh,
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes
because I was afraid, and it's part of like, yeah, it's a story that we make up in our mind also that it's not safe.
A lot of people are just listening, they're still before, and they can't believe they'll ever get to a place with their spouse where they'll be able to share and be vulnerable because they've tried a few times and, like you said, bit off their head and never again. Talking about trauma, talking about now when they come into your office, how long does it take? And if their spouse is not ready, it's very hard to get them back to a place where they can feel safe, where they can share, and the other one will listen.
I mean, we have couples all the time. They're like, we've been to 9 therapists. How's this going to be any different? And within the first day, usually by the end of the first day, they're like, this is completely different because of the structure. Like Shlomo doesn't allow yelling and screaming and talking the same way you would talk at home in his office. It's a completely different way of talking. It's more scripted and structured, and they have to follow that way of talking. And even though it might be a little bit awkward at first, after a little while, they're like, wow, like I can speak and be heard. And it helps because he's there to make sure that it's safe, of course. But we definitely, and it makes sense if people have gone before to therapy or tried before, it makes sense that they really wouldn't want to do this and put themselves out there to be vulnerable. Like that makes total sense. Just happens to
Well,
be this is
I think
different.
once it's structured and you have to read off a script, then people are like, oh, all the emotions are out, and like, what do I say now? It becomes, I hear what you're saying, it can make it easier, but other people are like, this is not a relationship.
Right.
Well, they're definitely they don't have to read off the script. I guide them, but it's definitely believe me, people definitely are emotional. They don't like check their emotions at the door. But the key is that the person who's listening is not responding. We can talk more about this later, but mirroring back. They're repeating back what's being said. They're being coached to be able to mirror back in a way that shows that they really get it, and that helps the person feel heard. And on the one hand, some people might fight against it if this is awkward, it's not normal. But on the other hand, it's much more effective than what they're doing till now.
Right.
And the person, it's interesting. I was doing I'm on the faculty of Imago, so we train therapists and coaches to become Imago therapists and educators. And we had in one of our trainings last week, we had someone bring one of their videos. So they were showing a couple they were working with. It's a very difficult couple. And the guy was like, he's like, he does not like it. He does not like doing this whole process. He thinks it's kind of hokey, but he was doing it. And at the end, the person who is the therapist, she asked them on the video, like, okay, so what was it like for you? And it's like, I just, I don't think it was like anything. And she's like, I really feel like you got me. Like, I really feel hurt. Like, I really feel better. So whether or not the guy who was listening, felt it was being helpful or thought it was strange, the person who was sharing felt better and felt more connected to him. His wife felt more connected to him. And I think that ultimately we all need to really be able to feel heard and safe to be able to feel heard and to open up and share. And it's so powerful when people do it that it's like, we had one of the things that some therapist said on a call the other day. She's like, I just practiced it on my own, and I had my two couples doing it, and it was like magic. Like they both calmed down, they both felt heard, and it was just made all the difference. So it really does work.
Yeah, it is different though. So
Okay, let's go to a live question.
that
I want to go to a live question, if that's okay. Okay.
what?
Live questions?
I want to jump into a live question.
It's fine, yeah.
One second. Wait for a few more seconds. I think they're just trying to unmute it. Menachem, you go to the next question till I get this person. Oh, 1 second. Okay, Menachem, go.
Yeah, so here's a question that was sent in. My husband and I often get stuck in little disagreements, and then it turns into big arguments. It could be about chores, kids, bedtime, but it escalates so quickly. Why does this happen? How can we stop these small things from becoming major conflicts? And you have to unmute.
Okay, there we are.
Did you finish the question?
Yeah, should I read it again?
No, it's good. So the question is, how you get from these little conflicts, why do they become big conflicts, and what can you do about it, right? So again, it's very easy for us to get caught up in the content, meaning the topic at hand, what we're arguing about, but it's really much more than that. The whole idea of communication also, it's also much more than that. We cannot not communicate. That's how we interact with another person, through speech. That's how we express ourselves. But really it's something more holistic. It's about creating, it's about the tension that the couple is experiencing. So whether it's arguing about leaving your socks on the floor, whether it's arguing about something that's a really big issue, it comes down to the fact that there is, again, the same principle of being unsafe. When we're feeling unsafe, we're not talking about it in a way where we can feel heard, we get reactive. And then that's where we're spending all of our energy focusing on ourselves, defending ourselves. And then the spouse becomes the enemy. And then it just ups the ante, and that you can throw in the kitchen sink and all the other complaints that you have about each other. And that is why it's so critical that, when we think about, let's just, fix this issue about putting the dishes in the sink, or fix this issue about kids going to bed on time. That's not really the issue. It's about overall, how does this couple interact? How do they know how to communicate? How do they make it safe for each other? When they do that, then anything that they deal with can be dealt with.
I think, yeah, it's like a temperature of their connection. So I notice, like, if we're having a lot of little bickerings, it makes me think, okay, have we been connected lately? Like, have we infused any positivity in our relationship? It's like a bank account. If you just keep withdrawing from the bank account, you're going to have an overdraft. So you have to have the deposits. So has there been any connection time, or is it just all these little fights? You have to add the deposits. So that way, when there is a conflict and it withdraws, it's not going to go into overdraft.
So then where do we start? So it's even before conversation, even before open communication, it's really the relationship. How do I feel? Do I spend time with my spouse?
Yeah. Yeah, infusing the it's like, there's the two way, like, Somayra and Aceto, like, you can focus on either one, but maybe in this case, infusing more good will give you the balance to withdraw when times are harder.
Having that connection, and then learning how to talk about it, learning how to talk about the little things so they don't become big things. If you can talk about it and feel heard, and instead of just arguing with each other, well, that's not true, I don't do that, and well, it's really your fault. Then if they don't know how to have that conversation about something little, then it's just going to escalate into bigger things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the next question over here. Again, it's an interesting question, but it's, any question could really. Okay, we're struggling with male infertility factor. My husband feels so guilty about it, like he got me stuck in a situation. Even though I always assure him it's not his fault, but because he feels so much guilt and shame, I feel like I can't share my own pain with him. It ends up causing conflict and we both feel alone. How do we communicate about such painful topics without making each other feel worse? So, more to globalize the question is like when a spouse is part of the, let's say the husband doesn't have parnasa, right? So she's not upset at the husband. She knows he's trying, but he's not making enough money. But she's still in pain about it because she can't buy things she needs. So how could you have that conversation when it's you could normally share, but because the other person is a factor in it, it's difficult to share.
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult to be able to hear things that are very raw, like some of the things that you mentioned. And that's we were saying in the beginning, that's what we that's why it's really important to be able to realize when one person's sharing, it's about their experience. It's not about us. Meaning, as much as we think it's about us, it's really more about them. And when we can realize that, we can get again to that place of curiosity. I want to hear more about that, why that's bothering them. And I can understand it. I can hold both realities. I can realize, yes, I'm doing this or that and it's contributing to this. And I can also understand why they feel that way. And I don't have to take it personally or feel bad about it because I know that it's more about their emotional experience and their pain than what I'm doing or not doing.
So can she ask her husband, like, there's something I want to talk about with you. When would be a good time? And when I say something, I don't need you to feel bad or guilty. I just want you to repeat what I'm saying and just hear what I'm saying.
I mean, it might be hard to do it on their own, but just you can also like preface it by say like, I know how hard you're working. That's the Parnassa thing. Like, I know how hard you're working and trying to find a job, and I don't want to make you feel bad, and I just want to know if you would be able to come over just to, to hear where I'm coming from, just my feelings that I'm struggling with, uh, not to make you feel bad, but just so I can express it because I'm having a hard time. And I don't need you to respond. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need to do anything. I just want you to listen. And if you can do that, then that takes the I think that takes the burden off the person who's listening, because a lot of people feel like, oh, now I either have to defend myself or I have to fix the problem or I have to, make you feel better. and to reassure, you don't have to do anything. I just want you to be present with me. And that's really what it's all about. Again, being fully present with the other person without any agenda.
It sounds simple, being present. We've had a lot of discussions, not so easy being present with yourself, now being present with your spouse, and especially when they put on the table things you do not want to look at. And and it's, if I come into your office, it would be more like, very structured. But I'm sure for many people to get to a place where their spouse should be able to listen because they're at fault, or it's about them, it's about the relationship, it's about what's going on. And you want to talk about it, I don't want to hear about it. We've tried so many times. What's it gonna help? What?
Well, you could also validate, like, I realize when I've spoken about this before, I've blamed you, I've yelled at you, and I've shamed you. And I own that. And I know I haven't showed up as the best wife or husband I can be. And now I found an approach. I would love to try it and share with you in a way where I'm going to take more responsibility and make this as safe as possible for you. Would you be willing to try this and to listen, to what I have to say? Owning that in the past it has not been safe, and that you understand why they may not want to listen or engage in the process again.
So the person who's sharing, it's not just about the person who's listening to not respond. The person who's sharing has to do it in a way that the other person can receive it. So I statements, taking ownership of their feelings, but talking about what they're feeling, even though it might be hard to hear. But one thing that we teach couples is that if it's hysterical, it's historical. If something really bothers a person, then there's something deeper there. It's coming from something deeper. So, or we call it the 90-10 rule. So it's, if I hear, when we had like some of our famous conflicts over the years, when I realized, okay, yeah, 10%, I did such and such, and I triggered you, I set you off, but it's 90% about the reason that you're getting so upset about it. It's more about your story than about what I did or didn't do.
But you don't say that.
No, you don't say that, but well, when I think that, then I realize, okay, I can actually get out of myself and hear what you're saying, as opposed to if I think it's about me, then I go right into defensive mode. So if a person can realize that the person who's listening in this case, if they can realize that even about these difficult things, yes, this is the reality. I am struggling with infertility or this or panas or whatever it is, but when I'm listening to what you have to say, it's more about the spouse's feelings and where they're coming from and whatever story that's related to that. Maybe they have some, a lot of times people have childhood issues related to these things that provoke a disproportionate reaction, let's say, and to be able to listen with care and with empathy, compassion, and to hear where the other person's coming from.
But it is about me. It's very hard. It is about me. I can't hold down a job. I've tried so many things. I can't open my mouth. I can't. It's about me. And now you're going to talk about put the conversation on the
It's
table.
about her reaction. It's her reaction to it. It's her feelings about it. That's about her, not about him.
You're talking about it. It's all. I'm saying, how do we
You
disconnect?
wouldn't be such a loser, you wouldn't have these problems.
No,
I was
you
like,
can't say that
I hear the
though.
concept. I hear your concept, but how do we get there?
It's really hard there's a lot of preparation involved into having one of these dialogues. It's not just like, hey, right now let's have a conversation. Like, you almost need to do like hakana, and you have to, yeah, I mean,
Tell us a little bit what you do with the couple before. Maybe deep
So,
breathing,
what'd you say?
some relaxation, deep breathing, trauma work.
well, so the first part is first of all, having these really big discussions, like, okay, maybe I would do it now. I've been doing this for 20 years, but like I would say someone who's like starting off, or even in some of our group workshops, we don't have people don't talk about the 10 out of 10 the first time you do this. Like, you have to get your feet wet. You have to learn how to talk about the day-to-day chores and annoyances before you can talk about the number one issue. But I've been doing this long enough that, it doesn't really phase me so much, but it's still hard for couples. So first of all, you have to make an appointment. You have to make sure it's a good time. So they're in the office, but even at home, if they're doing this on their own, to make sure that both people are really fully present, that it's a good time. Meaning you have to get permission. You can't just say, hey, I want to talk to you right now about your infertility. I'm really angry about it. I think you're horrible and ruined my life. It has to be it's very more like a gentle appointment. Are you available? I want to share something with you. Then I have, and depending on how reactive the couple is,
And you start with the appreciation.
I mean, even before that, even before that in the sessions, we start with appreciation. So we're already sharing something positive and connecting, having eye contact, prolonged eye contact, having a moment to connect and really kind of with each other. That's first.
Yeah, and you have them breathe, and you do sometimes a little relaxation.
I get there. And
Okay.
once we have the appointment, and once she's not in the office, so I'm doing this.
Yeah,
no. So once we have them make the appointment, then I give them like a visualization, just imagining themselves kind of crossing the bridge into the world of the other, trying to get safe, taking a few deep breaths, whatever they need to do. And some couples it will take longer just to get them centered, get them regulated, and really be able to kind of be calm as best as they can. And then it's a slow process. So one person shares. I wouldn't even have them have like they're not sharing for like 10 minutes and then the person has to repeat back. It's like they say a few sentences, they pause. The other person, what I heard you say is, when I lost my job, it really was difficult for you. Did I get you? It's a very slow process. So it helps people both calm down and regulate their brain. Sometimes couples hold hands with each other, they're making eye contact. It's a connective exercise. So people become extremely calm and even when they're talking about difficult topics. Now, it doesn't always work. Not every, meaning some couples need a little bit more coaching. Some couples are going to be more reactive. So, that's the job of what I do. It's not just like someone asked me like, oh, you just like, it must be boring for you. You have a script and people just follow. I said, that's not, it's not boring because people don't just follow it all the time. So you have to coach them and to make them feel safe. And sometimes people go off the rails and you have to bring them back and calm them down. And that's what we're trying to do. So we're really doing the best to get them the place of being present before and when they're having that conversation. So it's more about the experience that they're having with each other than the actual content of what they're even talking about. It's that experience of safe connection. And that's what's most reparative.
Okay, let's go to the live question. Okay. From you? Hi, how are you?
Can you explain more in detail how trauma from childhood affects the marriage relationship, and what should someone do if he's not yet married?
So how does trauma affect the marriage relationship? And then if someone's not yet married, what do they do about their trauma?
Yes.
Okay. So the word Imago means image, and the theory is that we have an unconscious image of our ideal partner. The reason why we choose our spouse, we have a lot of good conscious reasons. They may have a good personality, they had fun with them, but there's deeper reasons. And according to the theory, is that you're looking for someone who is a combination, a composite of the positive and negative characteristics of your parents. So you're actually looking for someone who's going to, I don't want to say, sounds a little re-traumatize you, meaning they're going to feel very familiar. They have the potential to re-traumatize you, but they also have the potential to heal you. So the childhood trauma and baggage that everyone brings is definitely shows up in the room within the relationship. And if it's not dealt with, the couple remains locked in what we call the power struggle. If it is dealt with and people become conscious of why their spouse is pushing their buttons, then they realize we create what we call the conscious marriage. Real love, to really realize that the reason why it bothers me so much when you do this is it reminds me of what my mother or father did to me growing up. And what that does is that helps me be able to have more free choice and be more intentional about how I respond instead of react. And it also helps the other spouse have more compassion because they realize instead of feeling it's about them, you're criticizing them for what they're doing to you, it's really about your reaction to the childhood. So it takes it away from them. Now, trauma is a big word. Sometimes people kind of, I don't want to say use it quite a bit. everybody has a degree of, we call it childhood, we call it unmet needs or childhood wounds. Some people really have really traumatic experiences, and that can be even more challenging. But everybody has, from their experience, we call it, some type of childhood baggage that would bring to the relationship. And some people like have a hard time with this because like, well, I had a good childhood, my parents were great, I don't want to say anything bad about my parents. It's not that your parents were horrible people. Your parents did the best job they could with the tools they had. But when you're dealing with our busy lives, it's not always possible to be fully attuned to every child, to give every child what they need. So there are going to be things that you as a child may have felt that you didn't get. So for example, let's say your parents were never home, they were very busy, they had very important jobs. So as an adult, you understand, yeah, well, my father was a very important doctor, and I understand why he was never home. So I have no problems with him. But as a child, you may have felt like, I really wish my father was here. So it doesn't contradict. So it's the experience that we had. Again, it's the even the subjective realities a lot of the time. It's the story that we made up in our mind, what made an impression on us that we take with us in looking for that ideal partner, and we are going to deal with that. And the good news is that if we can work through it and become conscious of it, we can actually heal together in the context of relationship. And that's why this work is so powerful. I'm gonna pause with that. I didn't answer the second question.
I see also a lot of people that are dating, or even before they start shidduchim, they say, I need to first heal myself before I enter into a relationship. And I'm seeing that a lot, even in the secular world. And I think we pick up a lot from the world around us. And I just think that is maybe a little misguided, because there isn't a way to really fix yourself completely at all beforehand, because we were born in relationship to our mother, we were wounded in relationship and hurt by other people, and ultimately we heal through relationship. So there isn't going to be a time where you're like, I'm there and now I can date, because even if you think you're really evolved, once you start dating and you commit, you're going to have problems with the person that you pick. And it's not because you haven't done the self work. It's because that's just how relationships are.
And even if you've done the self work, I've had people say, I thought I dealt with this already. I've been doing the therapy for years. Now I have to deal with this again. My childhood, I thought I was done with it.
Right. It comes up again in different
ways.
ways.
Come until you really get to deal with it in the context of that relationship.
You're sad, but you're saying the truth. But you're marrying somebody a little bit. It's the only way to really heal yourself.
We do feel like the ultimate healing is through relationship. Now, people can go to a therapist, and that's sort of an artificial relationship, and pay the therapist. And this is this is a big pet peeve of mine. And I can say things that Shlomo can't say because he's a therapist and I'm not. But I really see this as a huge issue in our world. And like, I just want to shout this from the rooftops. I see people struggling in relationships, and then they each have their own therapist. And then they'll say, well, my therapist said that you are X. And well, I can't talk to you about our issues because my therapist. And like, they both have a therapist. They're both working on the relationship issue with other people. It's very messy. And they would save a lot of time and a lot of money if they would actually work on the relationship together. They could each heal their own respective childhoods, even doing the work together.
At what point does the therapy? At what point do you know that you're ready to move on and start dating, as opposed to you're not marrying someone for them to be able to heal you? You can't like put that burden on someone else. So how do you know what part of marrying would be healing, as opposed to actually needing to do self work beforehand? Where's the line between the two?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think first of all, it's great that you have awareness. Like, awareness is always the first step, right? And you have awareness that you're even wanting to work on yourself, and that's huge. And I think we're all self-evolving. I mean, Shlomo and I were married 24 years. We're still working on ourselves. If you can learn how to have safe conversations, you can get through anything. So no matter what comes up with the person, you both have awareness, you talk about these things, and you learn how to have safe conversations. That will be like half the battle, if not more.
Only they could have. Only if they could have conversation. I could have conversation already because I went to therapy, but I don't know if they could have conversations.
Right. Right.
I don't think anyone's ever fully ready. The question is then, so how ready do you need to be? And that's really kind of a hard line. I think that if a person is, if a person is functional and they're,
Responsible.
responsible and they're, depending on what they're doing, I think that is, going to be helpful and aware and look and committed to growing and to realizing that it's an evolving process, not
I
one
want
and
to
done.
jump on to the next question, if that's okay. Okay, hi, you're on.
Hi, thank you so much.
Sure.
I was just wondering, I'm actually single, not married. If I have like a lot of like trauma, I'm like really scared of getting married and all that. Like I texted Usher in the beginning, like, should I even be on this talk? Because I'm like so scared. And then you started off like marriage, whatever. I guess I'm just asking, like, how could all singles like feel better about marriage? Because we're like a lot of us are scared.
We scared you.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. So yeah, we should have probably thought of you in the beginning.
It's the reason I say that is I think that it helps people realize that the good news is you will never find the perfect person that's going to make everything perfect. There's always going to be a challenge. It doesn't have to be a nightmare, but there's always going to be challenges. So you find someone who you want to work together with.
It comes down to commitment. So really, like, I mean, I don't know how many bashirts we have and all that good stuff, but once you make the decision and you commit, like you can make it great. I mean, we love it. We love being married most of the time. But we do want couples to know like conflict will happen and you can get through it. There are ways you can get through it healthily. And then it doesn't have to be so scary. I think what was scary for us is, we had this whirlwind dating. We dated 12 times. We were so excited. Everything was perfect. We thought we would have like the perfect marriage. My parents are divorced, very reactive, volatile childhood. So I thought like this is going to be it. I'm going to fix it and I'm going to have the perfect life. And what was scary for us was like what happened when we started. So knowing that like conflict is inevitable, but you can get through it, then it doesn't have to be so scary.
As opposed to saying conflict means I'm in the wrong relationship, I made a mistake. Now I have to either suck it up or
Get
get
divorced.
out of here.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps.
But one more point is I found with singles that even people like singles that have been dating for a long time and people will say they have commitment if issues, but once they learn about the more they can learn about relationships and it helps them and it helps them be able to be more aware and get closer to finding the right person.
Thank you.
So you recommend Imago for singles?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a whole workshop even for individuals. Yeah. There's a book too.
There's a book called Keeping the Love You Find, which is the book for singles. It might be a really helpful resource.
Right. If someone like doesn't want to get married because it sounds so scary, that would probably be something to work on first, right?
Yeah, I mean it's helpful to understand where that's coming from. Like
Right.
why is it so scary for me? Is it because I saw what I saw growing up? Is it I had some type of a traumatic experiencing with friends? Where is that coming from? That would be
Okay.
helpful to understand and be aware of that for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to the next live question. Hold on 1 second. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call and for speaking with us.
Sure.
So, we've been married over 30 years and very, very challenging, very traumatic backgrounds for both of us. And we went to an Imago workshop early on, and I really liked it. I really was hopeful. I actually read the book, Getting the Love You Want, even before I was married, and I was just so gung-ho. But the marriage was challenging, and my husband did not go for being told what he should say. He did not go for that. He just said, I can't just puppet out words. And so that was the end of that. He's not on board. So nothing else since then has helped. And do you have any my first question is, do you have any comment on that? Like, is there any twist or hope or something that you can say that can make somebody want, be more open to something like that? Yeah, that's my first question. My second question is going to be about this healing that we have to do, that the exact part that I need healed and the exact part that he needs healed from each other is the part that's most difficult for us to give to each other. That's one of the premises of Imago, and I'd like to just understand, what do you do when the other one is not ready or able or willing to help in that healing?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great. Thank you for your questions. So, the first question was how to make someone actually open to doing the process. So I can't comment on the workshop that you went to and how it was explained. People explain it in different ways. People can receive it in different ways, and people are resistant. Whether it's Imago or any type of therapy or work on oneself, people can be resistant. It's curious to understand why bothers him. I wouldn't ask him this, but why it bothers him so much to do this. Why can't I just follow the script? If it makes you feel good, makes you feel heard. So maybe he didn't understand and experience the true value of it to really appreciate why it could be helpful, but it's hard for me to say. With that said, look, in situations, there are a lot of people that call us where they don't have a spouse who's willing to work on things, or at least not willing to go to therapy. So there are things, the more you can do on your own to understand your own reactivity and be able to let go and to be more forgiving and to understand where the other person's coming from. I can't say it's easy. It would be much better if both people were doing it together. But if a person's committed to being in the relationship and their spouse doesn't want to get help with them, then the only thing they can do is work on themselves and to do their best in that and to see how they impact the other.
And to focus on being the safest person that you can be. So like, I'd be curious, like, without going into too many details, when did you do the workshop? And then have you, even though he wasn't interested, have you focused on, being the most safest partner you can be in your delivery and diffusing the reactivity? Like, there's so much, I recommend people come to the workshop, once a year, because it's hard to remember everything that was jam packed into the workshop. So something like our video course would be really, I think, could be very helpful for you, watching us in our fights. There's like 16 of our fights in the course. Getting through, like, really focusing on how could you show up as the safest person possible. And then the hope over time is the mirror neurons that people have when we watch somebody doing something, the other person will tend to copy it. So if you slow things down and you ask for appointments and you kind of mirror what he's saying when he's talking and validate him and empathize, he might one day wake up and be like, oh, I really liked when she did that. So it's not just like you have to follow this script. And if it was taught to you that way, like, that's kind of a mistake, I think. It's a disservice
And
to,
sometimes it's hard to do in a group workshop. When you're working with someone who's helping you cater to your specific situation, it can make it a little bit more tailor-made and user-friendly.
yeah, because we don't know what set him off.
Yeah.
So anyways,
The second question was the thing that we need. You said one of the principles, the thing that we need most from our spouse is the hardest for them to give, and vice versa. The thing we know is, and that's why it makes it so easy. I mean, difficult, because it would be easy if we could just say, okay, like here's what I need to heal, and here's what you need to heal. Let's just give it to each other, and shalom so everything will be happily ever after. That's not the way it works, but it's the challenge that makes it much more powerful, the healing much more powerful because of the conflict. So
also having compassion, like, you likely know a lot of his childhood story. Maybe he didn't share it with you in the way that's like so moving and so healing, but you have enough to go on to know his childhood story and also start having more compassion for, like, the little boy that he was growing up with his mother and father, or whatever the situation was. Like, you're going to have to reawaken a lot of compassion, and it's hard when you're not being seen as much and you would like that, but like, awakening compassion for that little boy that he was wounded in the time that he was, um remembering that a lot is going to be also somewhat helpful.
and to catch him doing doing things right. I think that it's really frustrating, especially if you feel like, I want to work on the relationship, he doesn't. So it's very easy to just focus on everything that he's doing wrong. I'm not saying that you do, but in general, this is a challenge people have. To just forget about all the things that you don't like about him. Focus on everything that he's doing right and encourage that. And if you can put all that energy in the positive and look for the good in him, you'll start seeing even more good. You'll start seeing him behave even better.
Yeah, appreciations go a long way.
Okay, let's go to
Okay,
the
thank you.
let's go to the next live question you're on.
Hey, so it's basically a continuation of this question. I love what I forgot Rivka said, how marriage really does continue on that process and healing. There's a lot of healing through marriage. My question, continuation, having done work on so many different things, and like I'll just throw out like the Laura Doyle type of thing, when it's only the women based, so the husband's not involved, but we show up as our best self. I would love to have my partner come with me in sessions and kind of heal together, and it's not even an option. And it's hard to be the one showing up all the time and being the one to, doing all the right things, being that amazing listener, holding that space. But again, there is, Baruch Hashem, with time, you do see a change. He does learn by example. You see a little bit, but it's still like, how does one get the support when they're just one-sided? And again, where would I find this kind of Imago therapy for one person?
Yeah, it's really hard not to have that support and to feel like you're always doing everything. I don't know everything Laura says. I'm not, we talked to her once. A lot of it is very helpful. You said you didn't find it was very helpful for women that were turtles, right? Because they surrender like too much. Right. I know you said that before.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I don't know if that's.
I found, look, she's not Tyrus Moshe.
Right.
Hashem comes first. I found what was helpful is in my first marriage, helping myself in the marriage. How I didn't let myself, what I learned a lot is self-care. My page, there was a lot of I can't, like really, it's supposed to help the relationship. It helped me in my relationship. And when he ended up walking out, I was okay and I didn't die. And that I thought was I don't think that was the purpose of her thing, but that separation of two people when I didn't know that. I grew up very enmeshed, like that's what I've seen. So I learned that to separate. And now in a new relationship, I'm my own person, but it gets kind of blended a lot. If I decide I want to do something, my partner doesn't realize where I begin and end sometimes. So
Yeah.
I kind of just constantly be doing the work.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Sometimes we find that one person has to, it doesn't maybe feel fair, but sometimes one person has to kind of carry the relationship, and sometimes it's for a certain period of time and then the other person eventually comes on board, but it's hard to predict kind of when that will be.
Do you think also, this safety thing is so huge. Like we might think we're being safe and we are scaring him away beyond, like, I'll never forget the first workshop we went to 20 years ago, and they divided up the room between maximizers and minimizers, or the hailstorm and turtle that I described. And I was with all the other hailstorms and he's over there on the other side with all the turtles. I looked at him across the room and I thought, oh my gosh, he must be terrified to live with me. And it was the first time it dawned on me, like just growing up in a house where we yelled at each other, constantly blamed each other. I saw my parents, I had to call the police a few times. Like it was so loud. And I had no clue that it was so unsafe. And so, not to say you're an unsafe person, but if the husband is pulling away, there's something from
No, there's definitely trauma and there's definitely history, both coming into a second relationship. Being the way we connected, I became that safe place. I'm definitely the safety, but because you're the safety, you're also the place to be I'm being hailed on, even though he could be a turtle. Like this is a new, like he's definitely a turtle because he'll if he feels threatened, he'll escape. But when it's safe, like, why didn't you put away the coffee? Like, so I didn't put away the coffee. Like, why are you eating that? Like, so I'm eating that. Like things that don't make sense. you get like bombarded by, because there's a lot of pain.
Hmm.
Doesn't make any sense. Like there's just this constant flow, a barrage of like,
I wonder what would happen if you just put on a video and like you happen to see what it's like to have a conversation in a different, like, I don't know.
well, so sometimes I'll really bait him, like we'll fight about the kitchen. I have a dream kitchen, and like I want two sinks, like milchiks and plates, very kosher, right? And there's like, whoa, no. So I'll constantly bring it up because it's such a safe topic. It's just a dumb kitchen.
But
But
that's
when
not safe for him.
no, but because if I really want something serious, then I'll just have to do it because it's not gonna happen. It's like too scary and that will come flying. I don't know why it's not safe for him. Why, if I get a flip phone, is it like the world is gonna come to an end? Like literally there's gonna be death.
So that's where the curiosity
Right.
is gonna
Wondering where why he feels that way.
So
So I started that conversation and it's like, but then I don't want to talk about it. Hang up.
Right.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, so for sure the conversation is not safe for both of you. And we would invite you both, somehow.
But let's say there is no, this is the question. How can I have those conversations, be guided with it without him? Is that even ever possible?
Yeah, I just don't know what you're saying, but if you said it the way you just said it to before, I could tell you 100% he's going to shut down because that's not safe. So that wouldn't be the way to have, that would not be a safe conversation. To say, why don't we do this? Or why don't we get a second sink? Like that's
No. This is right, but with time, I mean, again, now I'm up to the third sink, and he's giving me a second sink. It's just okay. I laugh because that's the connection, like, which it shouldn't be, but I don't know how else to.
it's like that's the connection where you have to like be like adversarial somehow.
Like I think there was a years of learning. That's what he's used to. So I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. But about the kitchen, I could fight. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, feel free to contact us afterwards. It's a little hard to
Yeah.
go through all the
But there
points.
is a way to do it on a one-sided healing process to be able to be there for somebody else, but still get support because it's
Yeah,
hard to do alone.
I just think that I think it's important to clarify what is safety for you and what is safety for him. And that might be beyond the scope of the discussion, but it's very easy for us to think, well, why can't I just ask you to get me to redo the deck? Like, why do you have such an issue with it? Well, that could be bringing up a whole childhood story for him. And that wouldn't be fair of me to like demand
Well,
that.
why can't he tell it to me? Like this bothers me because
Why can't he tell it to you? Wouldn't we?
I don't even want the kitchen. I just want to know why. Like, why can't you just hear me?
So why is very interesting. I think you taught me this probably like in the beginning of our marriage, like asking someone, why don't you, is very threatening. Why don't you do this?
It's why a question is an interrogative, which is the same word as interrogation. So it feels like, again, I'm not saying you're not coming, that's not your intention, but that in the brain, all of a sudden that experience might be like, oh wait, I'm on the witness stand right now, And
I think I become that hailstorm, right? When I come up with ideas that I want to be heard.
Right.
I don't mean to be.
you
I
don't
just
feel
want to be
heard.
heard.
Right.
You
It's a
don't feel heard.
conversation.
Yeah.
That makes sense. You don't feel heard.
Then I get shut down because I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah,
That
that
makes
makes sense. You don't feel heard. You don't feel like you've been supported, and you've had a
You
lot.
have to get louder, hoping that I'll actually hear you this time.
No, because I don't want the shutdown. I don't want the turtle. That's not that. I don't want that.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
So how do we teach each side to see the other side? If you're the hailstone, how to see the turtle. If you're the turtle, how to see the hailstone. Let's do it one at a time. You don't have to be together in the room. Let's talk about it.
Well, does anybody want to demo this conversation? Like if there's a husband and wife out there that would actually like to model this, Shlomo could walk you through it and then you all can see actually what it's like.
Yeah, if anybody would want. But even before that, would you be able to explain, like, they should understand the other side without them being there? It's like,
Yeah, we could definitely explain it. It's
Well,
easier to.
understand the other. Part of it is you may or may not know exactly where it's coming from. You may or may not know their story, but often you can. If you know your in-laws and you know a little bit about their childhood or their past relationship, even you said it was a second marriage, you might have an inkling, and you can just try to almost guess, not to ask, but just to think, wondering why he's so resistant. I'm wondering why he shuts down when somebody asks him for something. And knowing what you know about him, where is that coming from? Where do you think that's coming from? And as you understand that, well, that makes a lot of sense. And
But I don't want that.
but I don't want, what do you mean? I don't
want that. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't want that.
Well, you have to
I want
find,
them to shut down.
you don't want them to shut down, right? But so
Why can't they just?
Why can't I just give
why
it to
can't they
me?
just do what I want? Yeah. But because they don't feel safe. So again, that's the more look, it's a lot easier when you have both people on board, because then it's like the person who doesn't want to share, it's an opportunity to share, and they can actually feel heard, and they become less afraid to share because they know that there's a space for them in this relationship to open up and to talk.
Right. So in other words, we're looking for safety for both of you. And many people think, okay, after listening to Coach Menachem, okay, let me go try this. And you miss the point because there is no safety. And you're going to try to understand and have the conversation, but there's no safety. So coming to a therapist, which creates the safety for both of you, that could help. And it could be, people have taken the course and they know how it works, but it has to be both of you. Because if you're trying to change your spouse, then no safety.
Right.
Exactly. So that's why you have to change yourself. So for example, if I'm a hailstorm, I need to realize that if I want to talk to my spouse, I need to make sure that it's safe. I need to see if they're available instead of just pouncing on them. I need to think about how I share, how I come across, what I might do to trigger them. And that's the only thing I can do to
Yeah,
take
because you can never
responsibility
change
for
someone.
myself. Yeah. So you can't go in the relationship thinking about what I can get from the other person, but it's more about what can I do to be a better person, a better spouse.
Right. And even if you want to share, I just want my spouse to listen, I want to share, and how to say it so that after a minute or two, he or she is still there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a lot of work and there's a lot of steps to it.
It becomes more natural
Yeah.
with practice, and you can practice on your kids too. If you're, it's great to do with kids.
In any relationship, you're saying
Any
these
relationship.
concepts.
Yeah, Shlomo uses it with people in business together, with teams at work. I mean, he had one client that was a dentist, and he did the work, and the dentist said, I have made so much more money this week because I mirrored my patients who were really afraid to get the root canal. I validated them and I empathized with them, and they just kept buying my service. So it works in many relationships.
Yeah. It's all about, like, if you're a human being, then and you have a brain, then
You
it's
need
gonna work.
safety.
It'll
Yeah.
help.
The problem that we're not addressing here, and I don't know how to address it, is like what you're saying is very simple concept in theory. You're saying be calm, listen to your spouse, validate, and it's about them. Where it gets very complex for everybody is it's the thing that your spouse needs is the thing that you're suffering with. So,
Mhm.
and that's what, like the lady said before, what I could heal him, he could heal me, and that's the way Hashem made it, obviously, right? The person who needs this, needs that, like Hashem makes it like that, and that's Hashem gives you a spouse partially to heal, partially to give, whatever it is, but it's usually Zeh totally Bezeh.
Yeah.
But the problem is the issues that cause a lot of the big fights, and that's what trickles down to the small fights. It's not about the sugar and the salt. There's usually big things there. Is that the second they try to communicate, like all the triggers are coming on, and the person doesn't even know what's going on, right? Like, for example, her with the deck or her with the kitchen, like there could be a million things going on over there. He himself like just has to work it out. So like, you want to be open, you want to this, but at the same time, when you touch that raw nerve, you're not dealing with a logical person. That's why a lot you need that therapy and you need that calm space and you have to feel that safe. But when you have these conversations, they can be very, very touch and go. You know what I mean? And then finally when you open yourself up, which is even harder, and you want that connection, finally your spouse partially gives it to you, and then you lose it also is also very hard, you know? Like you put yourself out in that vulnerable place. I'm just bringing out a point that I think you need to play it out. You have to see, and you have to understand it, and you have to constantly do it, and you have to trust. It's so funny because you get married and you really trust the person. Everybody wants to have a successful marriage. Everybody wants to love and give to the person, but then everybody runs into the same rut of complexity and communication. So,
And also the question is, when does a person know he needs individual therapy? And when would you say, okay, now you can work it out together with the help of Imago or you? Sometimes it's heavy stuff that you don't want to do it together.
Right. So I always hear you say if someone has an addiction, they need addiction support. But mostly everything else, we really like the couple to handle together.
If it's a relationship issue, I mean, if even it's an addiction, Imago views it as an attachment issue. It doesn't mean you shouldn't go to AA or an inpatient. You have to do that too, for sure. If it's a relationship issue, then we believe the best, most effective way is to deal with it in the relationship. I've seen too many people who are going, I mean, you said it before, Rivka, but
I saw a therapist myself, and I would come home and I'd be mad at him, and I'd bring up all the things she said. And then one day he went to that same therapist and he came home mad at me, bringing up all the things she said. And it just was such a waste of when we could have done the work together.
if you're a good therapist, again, there are many good therapists out there that don't do this, but there are also many well-meaning people that actually make it worse, and they don't even meet the other person, and they can say, well, maybe you should get divorced and other things that I mean, it's happened. I get calls from this about this all the time. But if it's a relationship issue, the most impactful and the fastest way, most expeditious way to deal with it is in the context of the relationship.
Yeah.
So now, yeah, it might be hard for people to do it. It might be, but if both people are committed to doing it, they can do it. It's going to be scary. There's always going to be a dragger and a draggee. There's going to be one person who really wants to go, one person who's not so into it. But if they show up and they do the work, it feels a lot, in my experience, it feels a lot safer than we think. And when you feel safe, then people can, because I want to share maybe one point about having this word safe, sounds, what is it? It's kind of amorphous. I mean, we know maybe what it feels like to be safe, but it's really something that's happening in a neurological level, that when a person is in reactive mode, their brain is basically going into their brainstem and their limbic system are firing, and they feel like they're in actual danger. So that's when your spouse criticizes you, when they're triggering you from your childhood, you feel like you're in actual danger. You actually maybe feel like you're back in childhood. You're back in that same situation. You can't distinguish between your spouse and that past experience. It's almost like PTSD. It's like, someone's a combat victim and they're walking in the middle of Manhattan, they hear a loud noise, and they think they're back in Afghanistan. The truth is they're not, but that's what their body feels that way. They react to that. And that's what's happening in a smaller degree in a relationship. The key is when you're in that place, you're only thinking about yourself because you're feeling you're in danger. So I can't think about, oh, like, let me listen to you. Let me see what you need. Like, no, like I'm in mortal danger right now, and I need to protect myself or I will not survive. What this process does with the slowing it down and the intentionality and the eye contact, it gets a person to a place where they can access their full brain, access their prefrontal cortex, the part of their brain that can problem solve and can use logic. And when we can get to that place, that's where we solve the problem. So people can be fighting about, Einstein says, his definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. People will come to marriage counseling and they're going to just argue the same way they do at home. They're not going to get they're going to get the same results because there's nothing magic about a third person helping you and telling you what to do that will make it better. We need to change the dynamic. If we change the dynamic and we don't do the same thing over and over again, we can get different results because we're calming the brain down so we can access the prefrontal cortex. Instead of me feeling defensive and it's my way or the highway, I need to protect myself and you need to protect yourself, we can actually hear each other. And then people will say, even after the first time to do the dialogue process, oh, like, I've been married for 30 years. We have this problem. I never understood why this bothered you until now. Or, oh, finally, I have a new idea. People have the inner wisdom to figure it out. But because they're so stressed out and so threatened the whole time and so reactive, they're not able to be flexible. So it's really about this idea we keep talking about, the safety, is getting to a place where it shows in your brain, to be able to get to a place where you can access the part of your brain where you can come up with new solutions. And that's how you can be able to ask, how can I, the thing that my spouse needs most from me is the hardest thing for me to give. Well, if I feel threatened by it and I'm in my primitive part of my brain, so to speak, reactive brain, yeah, it's going to be hard. But if I can feel safe and be able to get to this part of the brain, then I can actually understand where you're coming from, and I can actually maybe even want to work on stretching and giving you that thing that you need most that's hard for me to do.
Okay, let's go to some more live questions. Hi, you're on.
Hi, thanks. I'm really enjoying this talk. What resonated most with me is the way you explained how the relationship, the healing that happens in the relationship. My question is also, just before you mentioned that we can't change others' paths, which is like something that like we all know, like you can only change yourself, you can't change someone else. What I'm trying to understand though is if I'm looking to go to couples therapy and I want to get that healing, I know that there's a lack of safety, and there's a lot of things that I would want to like bring up with my husband, and I don't share it because I don't feel safe. Um, and I want him to learn emotional regulation and emotional intelligence and different skills, communication or whatever it is, in order for me to be able to be safe. Now, like it sounds like it's a contradiction. Like if I want him to change in order for me to heal, but like we can't change someone else. So, and he's agreeing to come to therapy like very begrudgingly. So it's like, okay, we'll drag him there, but then like if he's not willing to do the work, right? Is that helpful? So I guess basically my question is, if we can't change someone else, can I expect for the healing to happen if like I'm basically going into couples therapy hoping he's gonna change?
You're asking how can you, if you're going to couples therapy expecting him to change, how can you get the healing that, I mean, but you're not supposed to expect him to change. How can you still get the healing if you're coming from, how can you still get the healing that you're looking for, but also not expect him to change in the process?
Basically.
Yeah, I think that I think you figured it out yourself. I think you heard tonight that we really can't change somebody else, and yet you want the healing. And so the best way I think would be for you to show up as that person, and again to acknowledge, like, I realize I haven't been the safest person in the past, and the way I brought things up maybe were threatening. I really think it would be great to try this, but like you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you're going in just with the idea that you want to change him, which I think you got on a deep level. And so like letting go of control and kind of, it's okay if he's like dragged in, just getting somebody to show up, the fact that he shows up, like maybe he's not excited about it, doing a little dance, like, yay, couples therapy, like who wants to do couples therapy? But if he's in the room with you and he went, like he's committed. So I always tell people, that when they show up at our workshops, to focus on themselves and to appreciate that their partner's there and share with them, I really appreciate that you showed up with me today. And like really letting that appreciation soak in and starting to share more of those, he might really come around.
And if you learn how to be safe with him in the work, think about like, I want to be a safer spouse. So if you learn how to do that together with him, I think he will likely respond in kind and be able to give you, what you need. So
Yeah, and you'd be shocked. I mean, we've got all kinds of people come to these workshops. I mean, just it's amazing to see that like people never would have thought their spouse could make it in the door that comes and they show up. So
Saying so many people are texting, I'm not even mentioning it, but so many people are texting. I just want this woman to hear, like, the husband has no interest. Like, there's nobody to work with. Like, you even asked the lady to do the work yourself and do it. But at the end of the day, when the other person's completely shut down and not going, you could do a tremendous amount of work and you could really try. But ultimately, you need two to tango. You need two people to dance. You could become a better person. You could become learning more savlanus, self-care, self-love, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, your spouse is the things that we're talking about here, communication and learning to be vulnerable and being honest with each other. If he's not even coming to therapy, the fact that the person's coming is in itself a commitment. Yes, sometimes the man comes begrudgingly, he comes that he's an Ibn Chacham and he knows better, but he's at least trying. It's a big step in a positive direction. That itself is very, very powerful, and you should be thankful for that.
For the people that aren't showing up, like I just would really, really invite you all to think, like, what am I doing? That's just imagine me scaring him like so much to be in marriage. Like it's really scary, especially if you're a hailstorm married to a turtle. It's terrifying for them. And so it's not an excuse for them not to show up for you, but really, really encourage you to take send a responsibility to learn what does safety mean. It does not mean self-care. That's like self. It means like really going past myself to imagine what could it be like to be married to me and how am I talking and am I interrogating? Am I asking constantly, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Why? It's
Feeling triggered already.
like it's really hard to be married and to receive that all the time. So, and this is barring cases of abuse. We're not talking about abuse because we always get someone yelling at us like, how could you
Talking about the run-of-the-mill
situations? So it's good to think about it.
and also think about why does it bother me so much? Again, the more you can be aware of why you're feeling triggered by your spouse, then you become less reactive to it. You might not like it, but you can think about other options. But if they're pushing your buttons and you're just so fixated on fixing them, then you miss the opportunity to understand why it's bothering you and what you can do differently.
Okay, let's go to the next live question.
Hey, thank you, Osher.
Sure.
Okay. How you doing, Rabbi Mrs. Slatkin? Hi. I wrote in here, like I could ask a question. I've had a very hard time being open and vulnerable and okay with myself. I don't want to actually change someone else. I've actually always wanted to change myself, whether dating, work, family. I kind of grew up with a dad. He'd have like outbursts and he'd slam the door. My mother was very passive and kind of put up with it. And I was the youngest, and I would go into hide in a room and just kind of like kick a ball around or something. So I'm like a total conflict avoider. I'm a turtle, avoidant attached. I'm anxious attached. I'm a guy who's a regular, irregular guy. I've always been a very nice person. I'm a people pleaser. But these things touched me very difficultly trying to like be vulnerable in dating or just say, hey, this is who I am. I'm a nice person. I just get shy sometimes. I can't ask questions. I can't say, hey, maybe we should take this further. I just like turtle up very easily. And I kind of know what it stems from. And it doesn't have to be an IFS thing. I've been in therapy for a pretty long time, classic therapy, DBT and CBT. I've had panic disorder from it ish. And kind of an agoraphobic attitude. So I kind of always hold myself as an isolator and a loner, and it's damaged a lot in my life, but I don't want to be this way. I kind of can identify the roots, but it's not, I almost think it's not fair to myself to have to live a life this way. So I kind of want to ask you, for any kind of motivational tools. I daven, I say Tehillim, I say Tikkun Kloli, I say everything. I'm not, but I've lost kind of a connection with God. I don't even like to go to shul anymore. I don't feel comfortable. I try to just talk to Hashem myself. I don't know if that's in a question or I'm just kind of putting it out there as a turtle avoidant attached person, anxious attached person. Thank you very much.
Sure. I mean, it is really, really scary, like witnessing that kind of, witnessing conflict. Our parents, we also the development where we were wounded and like what age. There's certain developmental stages that were more seriously wounded than others, right? Like where it makes it harder to, let's say, speak our truth or It's really, really hard. So just, and it sounds like you know that, childhood is not for the faint of heart. It really is trauma.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of courage, and sometimes it's like kind of pushing ourselves a little bit beyond our comfort zone and stretching, even though it's really terrifying, and to be able to see that we can do it, and to not judge ourselves, not to be kind to ourselves as well. I think that's really helpful, like not to beat ourselves up, not to think we're have something wrong with us. It's great that a lot of times like we're so much knowledgeable about psychotherapy and all of these ideas and concepts, but sometimes we also can pigeonhole ourselves and label ourselves, and then we begin to think poorly about ourselves. And it's important to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, to love ourselves, to be able to encourage ourselves, and to not limit ourselves to what we think we're capable of doing,
Yeah.
even if it seems so limiting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of therapy speak out there on social media. I'm this, I'm this, I'm an addict, I'm this, and the labels sometimes really seem to make things worse in many ways.
I mean, sometimes it's helpful for people. They like, okay, now I can put a name on this. Now I can understand. I can validate what I'm feeling, which is helpful. But we don't want it to hold you back from being able to, to feel like because all of us have our challenges. I don't think there's anybody that that's not struggling with something. Some people have it harder than others, but everybody has their own challenges, and there are plenty of people that can be in a relationship, and it's all, everyone's a work in progress.
I have been happy at seeing some of the men's groups popping up, because I do think men get maybe a little less community than women do. Maybe not in the firm world, I'm not sure, but I've seen some men's groups pop up, and I'm really happy when I see that, because you do need community and a supportive community, and it's just nice to have that connection, because as humans, like, we need connection like we need air and water. We cannot survive without it. It's a vital human need, and when we don't have it, like, it's really, really scary. And
Yeah, and men are less likely to have opportunities to connect and share their feelings with other people, because it's not something that we're
socialize.
supposed to be
Yeah.
doing. Women, it's much easier. So having those groups and having those opportunities can be helpful to give us support.
Thank you very much. Yeah, labeling is a very big thing. I mean, in a way, I'm sorry to say that, like, I found about ADHD kind of later in life. Maybe it needs to be medicated, maybe it doesn't, but I've come to these terms of avoidant attachment and anxious attachment, and those symptoms do make sense to me. So I don't know if I am that, or that just reads like a book to me. So I'm not I don't have struggles in other things like alcohol or drugs, thank God. So, but I do identify with the symptoms of those things. So I have to say that that's the things I struggle with. And I lack a lot of assertiveness, and the turtling is like super easy for me. Thank you.
Just one point about attachment, because I know it's very popular these days. I mean, it really comes down to, said this word a million times already, but it comes back to the safety. It's that when children don't feel that their parents are fully attuned to them, either the parent might be either like kind of overboard, like smothering them, or might be kind of a little bit more negligent and not giving them that consistent warmth, that the child's brain becomes anxious. And as the child grows up, that's relationship becomes something scary. And what the couple's work is to help co-regulate the brain, because otherwise your spouse is going, or anyone in a relationship with, is going to feel anxious to you, because that's your early experience of relationship. So it's that it's unsafe to attach, because that's what I experienced growing up. So being able to learn how to have the safe attachment can help with any of those attachment wounds that we have.
Thank you. I'll look at
People are asking, nobody's volunteering over here. Would it be an option for Rabbi Shlomo and Mrs. Rivka to play out a scenario. I could give you the scenario and let's see how Imago communication therapy would be helpful in this situation.
I mean, it would probably be better with something. I think it'd be better something real, and then if we're
We
just
could pick
we can
something.
act, but I don't think
No,
that
we
would be.
we could pick a. Do you need to go?
Okay, so let's go. What was your last fight? Let's discuss that.
Unfortunately, it was actually kind of recent. It's
Okay.
actually a little bit recent. We haven't had that in a while. If you don't want to talk about it, we don't. Yeah, can he just run to the bathroom for a second?
No.
We can talk to him.
With 200 people on?
Try to
Okay.
understand.
Rivka, you'll lay out the scenario. Tell us the scenario.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna be so upset.
It's perfect. Now we have the opportunity. We can hear your side first.
It's funny because I knew this might happen, and I told him, like, do you want to talk about it before we get on? No, so so his mom unfortunately was in the ER, and she's still in the hospital this week because she I guess almost had a heart attack. And so it was like a lot of unknowns. She's still there now. Unfortunately, she's hopefully going to be fine. And so we were rushing Erev Shabbos to go see her. We hadn't seen her all week, and I don't like to be rushed. So I don't know. I just sort of flipped out and yelled when we were in the car. And anyway, so I think that's what we're going to talk about. But
Did
anyway,
he go into turtle mode?
yeah, I guess he did a little bit snapping turtle, maybe. Like at the end, because I wasn't being super nice. But it's like, we were both feeling unsafe because it's like, I'm very, very close to my mother-in-law, and we want to make sure she's okay. And there was a lot of unknowns. So it brought out, a lot of anxiety for both of us. So let's see if he's willing to talk about it. If not, we can talk about something else. We'll find out if he wants to.
So again, let's just clarify to everybody listening that the point that whatever you want to call the therapy,
What were you saying?
the point of all I'm saying, whatever you want to call the therapy, the point is really just to have open communication. Even though you have open communication, you can be vulnerable and you can learn how to listen and validate, I guess, the other person. At the same time, you're gonna have blowups. You're gonna have things that you get overwhelmed, and you're gonna feel times. It doesn't mean that you guys always live in bliss and harmony, and you guys always are communicating in this calm, rational mind, drinking a tea.
No, it would be nice, but at least we have the tools to get through it when we do have blowups.
It's also less.
Yeah, much less frequent.
It's less frequent, and even when it happens, I mean, we either talk about it or sometimes we just find a way not to. For it to, I don't know. I mean, I can
Do
go away.
you want to send, or do you
Shlomo,
want
do you want to give us the scenario about you and your wife about something that you guys could argue about, and then how you guys can communicate it better?
I mean, I told him about your mom being in the hospital and how we were rushed Erev Shabbos to go visit her, and then I yelled at you in the car.
Okay.
I don't like being rushed. Do you want me to send, or?
You can talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so play out the scenario and say, if you don't mind, play it how it actually happened.
Well,
Oh.
so you'll hear about it, but usually we have couples face to face. So we actually have them talk to each other. So we're gonna sit face to face. Can you all see us?
I don't have popcorn. I don't have power. Okay, go.
He needs popcorn. Okay. So okay. Shlomo, there's something I'd like to speak about with you. Is now a good time?
Is it? Yeah, of course. Now's a good time.
Okay, so
Don't mind the 200 people.
right.
And the thousands listening to the video.
Right. Okay. So, and everybody should have in mind Shlomo's mother, Rabbi Shlomo. Okay. So when we were rushing out the door Erev Shabbos to visit mom, I was driving, and you mentioned a few things that were bothering you, and I was like driving, but also sort of looking on my phone, and you said, put the phone away, or something. Like you said, can you put the phone away? And I felt really annoyed. I felt like I was rushing to go see your mom. I was looking for something to help you. And then you kind of said, like, please put the phone away. So I just felt annoyed.
So what I heard you say is that when we were going to the hospital Erev Shabbos to visit my mother, I was telling you about a few things, talking about a few things with you, and you you were driving and looking at your phone, and I told you to put your phone away, and you were really annoyed with me because you were trying to do something to help me, and you were annoyed that I told you to put it away. Did I get you?
Yeah,
Right.
I felt like I was already going out of my way. I was already the one driving. I was looking to help you. And then I felt like kind of, I don't know, shut down or shamed when you asked me to put it away and stop looking.
So you felt we were the one you felt you were already going out of your way. You were driving, you were trying to help me, and then you kind of felt shamed when I told you to stop, put your phone away and stop looking at it.
Yeah,
Did I get you?
yeah.
Did I mark?
So just pause for a second. Just understand that I'm going to be the therapist now. You're the patient. Just understand that just what Shlomo told his wife now, and that she heard that he heard that she was shamed. The second he said that, her body temperature dropped like a bunch of degrees. Correct?
I think so.
There's something about like, well, it doesn't mean that Shlomo's wrong. It could be, she was on the phone driving 90 miles an hour and texting or playing WhatsApp or whatever. And he was right, but he's still validating that she felt a certain way. So that listening and validating made her feel right now just good. Nothing happened, but you feel already hurt. Now what happens?
Wait, but Shlomo, what were you thinking when she was saying that? What if you wouldn't know Imago? What would come up, and what would you say?
What would I have said? I mean, I had a
What do you have to do in
So
order to
annoyed.
listen?
I have a whole I have a whole story about that whole about how everything happened that day, and my reaction to it, my feeling about it, and my own pain, whatever around that. And I'm not going there right now. I'm just hearing where she's coming from and hearing.
I'm just going to I'm not talking about your story, but just put it up. It could be his mother was sick. He needed to go to the hospital. His wife was being not supportive and then busy with stupidity when he needed love, attention, and being taken care of and being focused on. And he could be 100% hurt, and he could be 100% right. But right now, she felt shamed and put down. So you're just validating her part. You're not even discussing anything about
Right.
you.
I'm not supposed. Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, I'm not. It has nothing to do with me.
I know he's upset still, but
So most couples right now would be fighting. Most couples would be saying, "You understand? I was going to my mother, and I was in a terrible situation, and you weren't there for me, and you would be ripping her more shame right now."
that's true.
Yeah, and
Proving your point that you were right and she was wrong.
And this is the first time we're talking about it, by the way, because we've been avoiding talking about it because we know we're both upset.
I
can tell.
I'm not.
But
This is very.
so
very
there's 2 more steps. Can you bear with us? So
No. I want people to understand like what I'm seeing. Yeah.
very safe space.
Yeah, and I will say I'm remembering now that I might have also been nudgy because in the car we weren't really speaking and I felt a little disconnected. I remember feeling like that on the way there. We weren't really talking, and I think you were saying to him or whatever. And I don't know, whatever. It didn't start off well. I felt like I left in a rush. The car ride was silent, like when it's usually not. So it just didn't, there was like a few things that set it up for not success.
So you said there are a few things that set up for not success, like when I made that remark to get you feeling shame because we were not really connected. We weren't talking much. You were in a rush to leave.
I was already
a
little triggered.
You were already a little triggered
from before we left. Yeah.
And then we weren't really talking or connecting.
Yeah.
Did I get you?
Yeah.
Some more?
No, that's all.
Sure.
Yeah. And I did not, and I yelled at you when we got out of the car, and that was not, I'm not proud of that behavior. So I'm sorry about that.
And you said you yelled at me when we got out of the car. You're not proud of that behavior. You're sorry about that.
Yeah.
Did I get you?
Yeah.
Is there more?
No.
So in summary, what I heard you say is that on Erev Shabbos, when we went to visit my mother in the hospital, and I made that comment to you I asked you to put your phone down and get off your phone. You felt really shame. You were trying to help me, and you felt like really ashamed that I told you to do that. And you said that we kind of it started off on the wrong foot because when we left the house, you were in a rush, and we we didn't really talk so much in the car, and you felt disconnected, and that kind of led up to that moment that made it really impactful. And then you also said that you were upset. I mean, you were apologized because you yelled at me.
Yeah.
Was that a good summary?
Yeah.
Is there more?
No.
So now how does Shlomo feel good? Because at the end of the day, he did everything great now. He heard you, he validated you, you feel good, you feel loved, you feel understood. But what about all his pain that he has? He didn't validate anything that what about everything that he went through that day?
Tomorrow.
Then I'm here. I'm in her world right now. It's not about me.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. That's okay.
We're not done yet, actually.
Next
We're
week.
not done.
Yeah. So there's two more
There's
quick
two more
steps.
Okay.
So I heard everything that you said, and what you're saying makes sense, and you make sense. Because I did tell you to put your phone down, and when you were doing something to help me.
Thank you.
And I imagine you were feeling angry. A little bit scared at that moment because of everything that was going on.
Maybe a little sad.
Sad. You felt sad.
Yeah.
Is there more that you feel?
No. It's just because we felt disconnected.
What's the stage that you're doing now? Are you doing now explaining the emotion?
Yeah. So first I validated by saying that what she said makes sense.
Right.
And so that like even if whether I have a different opinion, I can hear that in her experience is valid.
Okay.
And then and then the next piece is empathy, where I'm actually trying to guess what she was feeling at that moment, or even either right now or at that moment, but I'm trying to guess what emotion she was feeling. So I said maybe anger and then fear,
sad.
but then she said sad.
Okay.
Thank you for
Right.
listening.
I know sometimes like there would be, let's say, a child, if I were doing this with a couple, I would say, and give them the line like, and what this reminds me of from my childhood. And a lot of times this would come back to something deeper because I might think, okay, well, I just told you put your phone down because we have to leave right now or something like that, whatever it is. And that feeling of shame could be something very, I'm not saying it is, but like something very familiar. So then that would be something where we go even deeper. And then it would really be like easier to listen because it really has very little to do with, I mean, it's again 10%. I made that comment, but it's 90% the reaction.
That was just a
So
quick
again,
demo.
That was a quick one.
to repeat, what you did was you listened, you validated, then you went into the empathy of the emotion, and then sometimes you go deeper into the what similar life experience made you feel like that.
Right.
Yeah, but just if a couple is like really angry and someone's really like, I wouldn't recommend someone say, and what does this remind you of from your childhood? Because then it feels like your spouse is just playing.
Derogatory. Yeah.
If the sender, the person, if Rivka wanted to share, she could have said what this reminds me of my childhood, or if I'm working with a couple, if the facilitator would have them go
For
into
the spouse to do it could be derogatory, right?
Yeah, or just yeah. But I am curious actually where it comes from, and I'll think about that later, and we'll talk about it because it is I could see a little bit of a pattern that plays out sometimes, and so something we're talking about. Maybe when we do your side. We also don't switch off in the same conversation. So like we don't, because like it would ruin the whole, if we felt really connected and Usher, like you said, it looked like I was calmed down and connected. It would ruin it if Shlomo was like, okay, when's it going to be my turn to deal with my pain?
Or
Like,
if I would just say like, well, you did such and such, and that if it becomes a rebuttal, then you miss the point. The point is to go into the other person's world. If you still want to,
That's what I want to clarify. There was nothing here about you. Zero. So how do you, I'm asking you a personal question. You did all the work, you did an amazing job. Everybody give a clapping signal on your thing, just if you thought it was helpful, if you thought you gained something. Yeah. Anybody who thought that was pretty amazing, give a yeah, one of those. Yeah, keep going.
like a deep crying one that we've had before. It was like a quick
So my
one.
question is, I guess where I would have it hard or people would have it hard is how do you get that validation? Because you're the one that's hurt. Talk about you, Shlomo.
What do I do? Like, how do I get my validation?
Yeah, because
Understand, you have two people that are dysregulated, right?
Right.
So now you want one of them to be Lifnim Shur Zadin Tzaddik, calm himself down from his whatever triggered him, do the whole validation, do that. You did it beautiful. It was really nice. Very impressive, honestly. And go into the empathy and then all that. But how are you gonna get? So normally we're looking at, okay, now Rivka, you turn to Shlomo. Let's see how you do it to him. But you're not doing that. So where is that? Are you going
So,
to the grave with this?
no. So, so it's something that there's a few different options. One, like if someone's saying me, like, let's say, like 1 week, one person shares, it could be next week I would want to share about it. Or we make a time. I'll say like not like immediately, because the point is like the feeling in that moment is like when it happened for sure. It's like you were really angry with me, and I was really hurt. I don't even know, but I was really
I
hurt,
know.
and I like really like was like, and that's like it comes a power struggle. Who's gonna get to talk about it? And so I just like I didn't say anything, and I tried to deal with it myself. And in davening, I had this realization. Anyway, it helped me like deal with it and just let it go and see like what can I do to take ownership about what happened. So even though if I think, normally our experience is, well, it's their fault, like they did this to me, or they hurt me, but it's like, what can I do to realize this is my issue that I have to deal with? Whatever, that's not an easy thing to do, but and so a lot of times you can doesn't bother you. Also, it's like when I hear this, if I hear the story, and especially if I hear a childhood story, like about other issues we've had, I realize I don't need to explain myself. I don't need to defend myself. It has really very little to do with me. Yes, okay, I know I did such and such, but like if you're getting upset with me because I peeled the vegetables in the sink instead of a trash bag, I know that like I don't need to defend myself. Like I realize there's a story there and I need to listen
Or
to
in
that
this
story.
case, you said put down your phone, right? So like I felt shame. So since you know that, you're not feeling like you have to still get heard and your side heard because
Yeah, I mean,
you
if I
realize
can, the more you can get in touch with the other person,
Again, let's go zoom out of the story.
yeah, yeah.
I'm taking the story and say you were
Never mind.
100% hurt. You're the victim here. Your wife was 100% wrong, right? I'm going with that theory. Forget about the story. Your mother was sick, and
right.
you got the whole go ahead. You're a tzaddik, and she was just completely off her game.
Sure.
So you did everything great for her. But at the end of the day, you really baffled me. You did something really not nice, hurt my feelings. You embarrassed me. You hurt me. Something that really I'm not okay with. So I'm very proud of you that you did that with her, but you're not asking in return that. So how without being a martyr are you okay with that? And how do you expect somebody else to be okay with that? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so you can,
I'm talking about in a situation where the person was beveled.
Internally, you're saying how is he dealing? Practically, we sometimes will tell couples next week. He could say to me, "Remember that time we had that dialogue in Coach Menachem? Do you mind if I share what was going on for me?" But like a week later, not like that minute. Like, okay, my turn, because that will ruin.
but I could also, I mean, again, this is harder for people that are starting out on this. Like I could, in theory, and I'm not going to, but I could, if Rivka were willing, to have a dialogue about what I was experiencing
Correct.
without blaming her, without reacting, without taking away from her feeling. Meaning, I can understand that I made that comment and she felt shamed. I can validate that and still be able to share what was going on in my world without it rebutting what she said. But
Correct.
that's hard. That I mean that takes time and facilitation to be able to really be able to do that. So in general, like I try to have people not do that right away. If you want to do that, you have to ask permission. Is now I'd like to respond. Is now a good time? If it's not a good time, then some people say like, no, I don't want to hear it right now. Um, then I would say later on, there's a different schools of thought in the model. This is how like we find because
Somebody's texting me, shouldn't Rivka then ask, what's going on for you?
she should, I mean, she could, but it has to be done, it has to be shared in a way that's going to be safe. If it's not going to be safe and it's going to be rebuttal or invalidate what you said, it ruins the
Why
whole.
wouldn't Rivka, why when he was done, why didn't you turn to him and ask him? Why didn't you do the same thing vice versa? I'm asking you.
Oh, well, we don't follow usually the mahalach of like doing both sides in
Tit
one.
for tat.
Yeah, because like sometimes you have couples, they're crying, they're like having this whole connected moment, and then you're gonna be like, okay, other side, and then it's like it just ruins.
Or it's like, yeah, but you shouldn't have been like, or it's like, yeah, but like
You shouldn't have been on your phone.
shouldn't be on the phone when we have to get there already, or like you're, you know, or when you're driving or whatever like that. It's against the law, you know. That's completely invalidating of what she was sharing. It has nothing.
No, but you could say it in a nice way. But still, Shlomo's usually of the school of thought where we don't have couples do this other side in the same night. Or
No, I feel if you would do it that way, again, I understand the theory. If you do it that way, it feels a little bit disingenuous. Like, I'm going to do you if you're going to be nice to me, make me feel good.
But so you do
But
it.
again, for the spouse, it's hard.
If you feel the need to do it, so you schedule an appointment, you know, you wait, let's say wait 24 hours.
You might say,
And like tomorrow I might say, look, I want to know if, can I make a time to talk to you? I want to share a process with you, have a dialogue about what happened Erev Shabbos. And then you could say, okay, yeah, or like not now, how about tonight when the kids go to bed? And then we have that conversation and we can do it, and it's not a you know, a
power
rebuttal.
struggle, yeah.
It's just okay, like I heard you, you heard me. It's like it's not a stira to hear the different opinions.
And that's why there's a training. It's not simple for one to sit with the other person's, you know, with your own and sitting with what they shared, and you want to get it out of you. Just you leave it there, you understand the other, and that's it. Stay there. It can be very hard.
It's very hard. It was very,
But
yeah.
once we understand what you're looking for, understand why you're doing it, we're not here to, you know, see who's right and who's wrong. It's not a question of who's right or who's wrong. We're trying to figure this out together. For you to really understand the other is to be able to sit with it, even if it's painful and you don't like it and it's icky and that's part of it. That's what they need to hear. That's the reason why we're having such a hard time in relationship, because it's always back and forth. But me, but you, but me. Over here, one of the things we're learning is it's not about you or me. It's what did you need? How did you feel? Let me try to understand it and then stay there, even though you have so much to bring up on the other side. That's not what we're doing. So it sounds amazing.
Yeah. If you know, Shlomo, one part of the bio that changed since he came last, it was before October 7th, even a few years ago. He's now able to certify people as Imago therapists or as Imago coaches. So if people are really intrigued and they want to learn this as a profession, even, or just a skill to get really good at, he does have a training coming up last week of July, and it's virtual. It's really wonderful training to learn how to be able to sit with other people's.
I would say it's so important for chinuch with your kids, and like you mentioned at work with your coworkers.
Sure.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
all
Okay,
the
let's go to the closing segment and we'll leave with closing. Okay, so first of all, a big thank you to Rabbi Shlomo, his wife, for Slatkin, for coming on tonight and giving tremendous chizik. The demo was amazing. Everybody can text in the box on 1 to 10. I want to know how much did you gain from tonight's share. Put it in the chat. Let me just 1 second. Hold on. Okay, text the chat on a 1 to 10. How much you gained tonight from the Zlatkin couple over here? And Menachem, hopefully we come back again, give more chizik to people. So again, next week, again, just to repeat, next week, July 13th, will be Shabbos with Hamas. We're not going to have a share. The following week will be Daniel Usher Kleiman, followed by Charlie Harari. That will be the Sunday before Tisha B'Av. Please join us. Let people know about it. Everything's recorded. It's on menachembernfeld.com. If anyone has any questions, please email coachmenachem@gmail.com. Tonight's share is 236. The phone number is 732-305-9011. Thank you to all the advertising sponsors, Lakewood Scoop, Ellie and Ariel for 510 Central, and Chayla Kaufman from JCN. We're going to go to the closing part again. If anybody wants to get in touch with the Slatkins, you can go to the website. Again, what's the website?
TheMarriageRestorationProject.com.
And I'll post it in the chat as well. If you look at the chat, people are texting. I just opened it up so everybody can text whatever they want now. So I hope you guys are looking, just to give you a little chizik. Let's just go to the closing. I'll go first, Menachem, and then I guess I'm going to ask Mrs. Slatkin to close. Is that okay?
I'm really not as good as Shlomo, but whatever you say.
Use close, and then Shlomo will do repair, because he's very good at that.
Restoration.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, listen, it's a very powerful topic. This is something that people need in marriage. Obviously, communication is the number one issue, and as we see, everybody, gets into these situations, and young couples, especially, communication, it's so difficult, so hard. I think it seems like it gets harder now, just because so much things is text and so many things are just not verbal. Like I've had recently a text message with somebody, and like just because I use caps on a word, like they read things like it's so not like normal conversations. Learning how to communicate and validate in this, it's a very powerful tool. It's very chachmadik. It's also very self-aware for yourself, like how to be, in a good place. And I think that we have to realize when we marry somebody that you love them, they love you. They're there really for your best interest, not out to hurt you. They're not out to get you. And I think people really keep on like hurting each other, and it keeps on growing this mountain of filth that you have to. My wife just walked in. I wasn't mentioning you. This mountain of like hurt that it's so hard to repair and so hard to get into these conversations because you're so hurt for so many years. So let's say somebody's married for 20, 30 years and they can never talk to their spouse, and then they don't even try. So to go bring this out so many years later, again, you should still do it, but it's just so much harder. Like, but if you go with the concept that really both him and her, and like for all the husbands that listen that don't want to go to therapy, like you're doing an avil to yourself. Like you're really hurting yourself. It's not because she's crazy because you need to go to a therapist, or because she doesn't understand, because you're so smart and she's so dumb, or well, the therapists are crazy. These guys come up with all their shitas. You know what I mean? Work on it because you really want to get to that place. Because if you have a good communication, you could really accomplish so much more. There's so much more you could do being connected and being understanding to the other person. And it helps you in your avoidance, your midas, right? They say that the ultimate marriage is the spouse really hits that core that you need to work on. Specifically that thing that she hammers in or that he hammers into her, that's like their ticket on nefesh. That's like their thing that they really have to work on. Like somehow Hashem created it that the spouse knows how to hit those nakudas very strong. I mean, somebody said it tonight also. Like, they don't bother you about things that you don't care about. The guy who's laid back, who doesn't care if he's late, that's not the issue. He marries a woman that she's, like, it's the issue that makes him crazy. That's the issue that makes her, like, tap into it. So, I'm sure people should listen to this and they should reach out, whether it's Rabbi Slatkin or just get into communication therapy, learning how to, at least even go, let's go even a step back. Just go, if you see that you're struggling with it, be open to the guidance. It's much easier to blame the other person, much easier to say the other person's crazy, the other person's this, the other person's that. You have it all figured out, but you're really cutting off your nose despite your face. You're really hurting yourself. And be a gavra, be a man, be a woman, and really go with an open mind to really, this is what I need to do for myself, for my marriage, for my spouse, for my kids. That's just my closing. Coach Menachem.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Very informative. I want to mention that there are people who are struggling, are in pain, and even when they listen to this, it sounds like a dream. They wish they would be able to do it, or maybe they want what the spouse does or doesn't. And it's hard. It's hard. And I would say, don't, you have to know where you are, but don't try to do this by yourself. Especially if you're in the situation for a while and you heard the concepts and you believe it's safe, so you're gonna try to work it out. Even by being so nice to your spouse can be the biggest trigger, and all you're doing is pushing them away and they're not coming back. It's like, if it's, I think it's more than we heard tonight, very deep, but it's to understand it, in your relationship, to really understand your spouse, to understand what works for you, what works for them, and what you think what works for you. You'll try to, that they should understand you. Again, if you can do it by yourself, it works, amazing, but there are people out there that are trained, and there's a reason for it. It's whole training. It's not only sitting tonight and listening to that. So that's very important. And like we heard, the concept of being able to really get out of yourself and understand the other. And sit there and just sit there. Don't go anywhere. Just understand them. Even though inside of you, there's, the other way, all those triggers, try to understand the other. And those who are struggling and their spouses don't want to go, it's hard to say, try to understand them, but there is something that's holding them back. And to really understand, it's hard. That inner child, that's something that they just cannot be vulnerable, they cannot open up. To be able to sit there, that's very hard. So my bracha is Tfilat Hashem. Hashem should be choinen das, all of us, me, my spouse, or you and your spouse, whatever they need to be able to make things a little bit easier, whether it's going for help, having the conversations, the hard conversations, in a way that we can grow the relationship, get better, and ultimately our relationship with ourselves, like I always mention, so that we can have a healthy relationship with our kids, spouse, coworkers, and Hashem. So Hashem should help us all. Thank you.
Man.
Okay, let's go. Sorry, Shlomo. We're gonna listen to
You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
Listen, you're sitting with hundreds of people that are gonna listen to this. What, after all the 2 hours plus sitting together, what do you want to leave everybody with?
I just want to say, this is very real for us. This is especially real for me. I said before my parents were divorced, we had a really volatile childhood. And I remember as a little girl, like thinking and davening to Hashem, like one day I'm going to do something that's going to help people like this. I'm going to help myself. And so it's very real and it's personal. It's right up there. Like I would say, like in terms, helping other couples is right up there with serving Hashem with our family. It's such a priority for us. And I'm grateful that, we went through our own marriage struggle so we could help other people, even if I have to embarrass myself in front of 200 people. I'm used to it by now. But I know that I've changed. I came into this marriage knowing absolutely nothing, thinking I knew everything. And learning, I happen to be married to a great guy, but I learned together like I know nothing. And watching my parents was difficult. And even doing self work, it's very easy to think like, well, I'm so self evolved and I've really worked on myself. And it's like, this is baby steps. Really, it's taken years and it's a lot of hard work and commitment. And like, if I can change my big hailstorm personality, which I have, I know that it's possible and doesn't have to be so complicated. It can just start with like really baby steps. And we've seen it, like we've seen miracles all the time, not just with ourselves, but with other couples. I really believe this is saving the world one couple at a time. And we need this in our world. Our children need it. Again, everybody has to make their own decision about their marriage, but like kids, need stability and safety, and it's really worth the commitment and the hard work. And I know it's hard when a spouse isn't on board. And so I encourage everybody who doesn't have a willing spouse to take Shlomo's training, because it's not just going and learning a lot of self-work and then expecting the magic to happen. Like it really is a whole paradigm shift. So I believe in everybody's ability to grow and change. I don't think Hashem, this is how Hashem designed marriage, in my opinion. I think there's lots of sources from the Torah that validate that. So it's not by accident that you were put in the situation that you were put into.
Shlomo.
Yeah, and in line with that, Baal Shem Tov says, it says in Tehillim, Ki hine Avech Hashem, Ki hine Avech Yavedu. If a person realizes that their enemies, the challenges in their life are really coming from Hashem, then they evaporate, they go away. And I think that being able to realize that this isn't, as Rivka said, an opportunity for us to work on this. And the more we can be aware of it, one of the things that really got us and really could really understand this in the beginning, it made so much sense to us, because when we understood that the very things that we were having challenges with were our own issues that we needed to work on, that helped us believe and realize that we were in the right relationship. And also, as Rivka said, that when it's so important, not only for yourselves, but for your children. When I see couples come in and they share about their childhood stories, sometimes it's just so painful. And I sit there sometimes and I wonder, gosh, if their parents would have gotten it right, these people would not be in my office. So the opportunity that we have to stop the cycle, even if it's from generations, to stop the cycle and create a new trajectory for the future, even if we can be a little bit better, it's so powerful. So I wish everyone the siyata dishmaya and everything, and especially in this work together with your spouse or in relationships, and it should bring more shalom in our homes and in the world.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you much in 2 weeks. Everybody should have an easy fast. And let's try this week a little better communication.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.